Hello, YouTubers. So, come back, talk a little bit more, give a few more minutes discussion on, a topic of traveling and spirituality and psychedelics, and how they affected my life and things like that. So, where we left off was basically I was graduating high school and on my way to move to Richmond, Virginia from New Jersey. But let's stop here because, yeah, I explained a lot where my wanderlust traveling came from, but where did my spiritual seeking really come from? You know what I mean? Like, where did that begin? And so, if I could just briefly just touch on several key um, spiritual moments that I had growing up, and how that led me pretty much to where I am today. It's not that it led me there, but it's what how my brain works. You know what I mean? My first spiritual experience that I can remember, that I still remember to this day. I can't really say if it really happened or not, from a logical point of view, but it happened. I felt this. This is something that happened to me. Now, I'm letting, this is a lot of spiritual nuggets. These are just things that happened to me. Everyone's spiritual experience is different. Um, and these are things that I remember. I don't have many memories like this that stuck with me my whole life. Firstly, when I was like 4 years old, I remember, maybe even five, but I think it was like four or five. I was living in a block of flats, apartment flats, and we were on the second floor. And our back patio had a fire, not a fire, it wasn't a fire escape, but it was a storm drain. And anyway, so one day I climbed down the storm drain, and I start wandering around the back of these flats, and checking out people's houses through their sliding glass doors. And I remember this one house, the door was open, and I smelled incense coming out of it. It was like, I was so young, I just remember that, oh man, it smells awesome, heavenly. So I go to check it out, and I go into the house. There was an old man and an old lady. The old man was sitting at the sofa, and the old lady was kind of in the kitchen, and she invited me in, and she was very happy to see me. This little boy that's wandering around by himself in the apartment complex. I remember, as a kid, I don't know the difference between brass and gold. Like, brass is very shiny, and all these brass things that Indians have, in the flat. And I wouldn't know this as a kid, I remember brass elephants and things, that you find in an Indian house, brass cups. She was making a meal for the old gentleman, and so she had me eat, and I ate some of the Indian food, and I remember the incense, I remember the food, I remember the feeling of, wow, this is just really, remarkable. After I stayed there a while and ended up leaving, go out the front door now. So now I'm out the front door, and I was thinking like, oh, my house is only right over, my apartment's only right here, I knew the number. So I go to the apartment, I'm knocking on the door to get back in. My mom answers the door, frantic. Where have you been? Where have you been? I was at the Indian place, right? The Indian family that lives 2 doors down or whatever. No, there's nobody that lives in that apartment. No, man, I was just there, like a nice little Indian couple. No, there's nobody that lives in that apartment. And she took me to the back in the back, and we looked in the back through the glass door, and the apartment was empty. Nobody was living there. I was like, again, 4 or 5 years old. I asked my mom about this years and years later, and she don't remember anything that even happened. But I'm going to tell you that this is a memory that was stuck in my head throughout my whole life. I mean, my whole life. Even before, like, I was cognizant of my uncle, my dad's brother in the 70s joined the Hare Krishna movement, the ISKCON movement, and he was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Yeah, I think he was made a disciple in the late 70s, 75, 75, 76, something like that. I always thought, maybe later there was some kind of association with him and the devotees and myself. I asked him about that too later on, and he said no. And he said that maybe once when I was a baby, and the devotee maybe did some kind of chant, over me as a baby. But again, that had nothing to do with who I met at that time when I was a kid, and don't know who it was. I can't even remember the face of the man. And I'm thinking, could have been Prabhupada, could have been. I don't remember. I don't know. I'm trying to remember back on it. I'll like putting somebody's face there, that maybe shouldn't belong, or it's just like a mind thing if you try to remember. So yeah, that happened. I remember another time, maybe when I was a little bit older, maybe 6. We moved somewhere else. We had a house, and the house had a backyard. The backyard had some trees. I had a hammock strung between the trees. I fell asleep in the hammock. This is like my second spiritual experience. I remember this day. Very strong. Even though it might have been just a dream. Very strong dream. But I fell asleep in this hammock. And I dreamt that I was flying, I took off flying. Hey man, I was flying, when I say I was flying, I was flying. I don't know how, I never flew before. I was never in a plane as a child. So by the time I'm like 6 or whatever, I would I had an inkling of what flying was, and I did it. So I was really enjoyable at first. I'm talking about flying, taking off. You see the tops of the trees now, tops of the houses, and the roads, the cars going by, tops of the cars, buses, flying. Now I'm getting higher. I'm really enjoying this zooming around feeling of flying. And man, I got so high, I started flying above clouds. Then I remember seeing a shadow on the top of the clouds, right? It brings up a lot of questions right there. But a shadow on top of the clouds. And then I was like, whoa, this is not just a dream, there's a shadow there. So something's causing the light to block and cast a shadow. And that's when I got nervous and I started to feel the gravity of the flight. And when I mean the gravity, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm heavy. Phew. And I started to fall. Drawn back to my body, And then when I woke up, I'm tangled up inside of this hammock. It was like one of those net hammocks. And I'm all spinning around, tangled up. So I remembered that my whole life, Because I was thinking if it was an out-of-body experience, and I think about this later on in life, but if it was an out-of-body experience, then why the shadow? You know what I mean? Or was the shadow just kind of like an expectation of, what you would expect, even in a dream, your brain's working and it's solving all these complex puzzles and problems. I can never answer it 100%. But I know one thing. I remember it. I remember it to this day when I think about it. I remember the weight feeling. I remember falling back into the body. I remember it was heavy, man. It was very, very heavy.
Like and subscribe so we can make more videos at home.
Like and subscribe.